6.2 talks about polynomials. It's a lot of vocabulary words that you just have to make sure that you understand. First of all, polynomial, I'm going to skip straight down to this one, is a mathematical expression with lots of variables in it. It's made up of several monomials, which is just single. Mono means one, like a monocycle. A single number or a variable or a term, basically, like 2x. The degree of a monomial is the sum of the exponents of all of the variables, and a constant has no variable, so its degree is 0. The degree of a polynomial is the degree of the term with the greatest exponent. So where you see the word degree, think of exponent. The standard form of a polynomial, you are going from greatest degree to least degree. So let's think about these for example. All of these are polynomials. A monomial is a single term. The degree of this monomial is 4 because there's an understood exponent of 1 right here at the x, and together 1 plus 3 is 4. So the degree of that monomial is 4. The degree of this trinomial, because there's 3 terms, it's a trinomial, is the degree of the highest term. So this is 2, so that's a second degree trinomial. Binomials have 2 terms, or 2 monomials. The degree of this binomial would be 5. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4 term polynomial. The degree of this polynomial would be 6 because a standard form polynomial is written in descending order, so from the highest exponent to the lowest. So here you see a 1, 2, 3, 4 term polynomial. When you arrange it for the highest degree, that would be the 6, always take the sign in front. That means the degree of this polynomial is 6, and the leading coefficient is the coefficient, the number in front of a variable, that is the first one, so -5. There's specific vocab that you have to understand. A constant has a degree of 0. So for example, if you have something like 2x plus 5, 5 is the constant. It doesn't have a variable. It's sort of as if it was x to the 0, because x to the 0 is 1, and 1 times 5 would be 5. So a constant has a degree of 0. A linear function, or a linear polynomial, is kind of like if you thought of 2x plus 3, linear, degree of 1. Quadratic, power of 2, would be an exponent of 2. So 2x squared plus 3x is a binomial, and the degree of the quadratic is 2. Cubic is power of 3. So if I had a polynomial that looked like this, the degree of that trinomial, because there's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, is cubic. It's a cubic. When you have an exponent of 4 as the degree, the highest degree of the polynomial, it's called a quartic. Power of 5 is quintic. And then everything else afterwards is just 6th degree, 7th degree, 8th degree, 9th degree, etc. In terms of terms, so when we're just talking about how many items there are in a polynomial, if you have one term, it's called a monomial. So 2x to the third y squared, for example. That is a single term. It's called a monomial. If, however, I have something like this, there are 2 terms. It is a binomial. Now, in this example of the binomial, if I asked you what is the degree of this binomial, it would be 3. It is a 3rd degree, because the highest exponent, or the sum of the exponents of the monomial's first term, are 3. A trinomial has 3 terms, and then everything else bigger than 3 terms is just called a monomial. So let's just make sure we understand the vocab. A trinomial has 3 terms. A monomial has 1 term. Why does 5xy cubed have a degree of 4? Because the exponent of the x is 1, and the degree of the entire term is the sum of the exponents. So the sum of the exponents is 4. That's why it's a degree of 4. Number 3, classify 4n to the 3 plus 6 by degree. This is a cubic because it's power of 3, and it's a binomial because it has 2 terms. Those 2 terms are 4n cubed and 6. Number 4, write the polynomial in standard form. Remember, standard form is from greatest exponent to least. So this is the highest exponent. Always take the sign in front, so it's 4g squared. Then comes the one that has an exponent of just 1. Then comes the constant that does not have an exponent, or the exponent is 0. What is the leading coefficient? It is -4, because that is the front coefficient. What is the degree of the polynomial? Well, the highest exponent is 2. It is power of 2, which we call a quadratic. Classified by number of terms, there are 3 terms, 1, 2, and 3, so it is called a trinomial. And classified by the degree, we will call this a quadratic trinomial. So here are some examples. What is the degree of the monomial? Well, in this case, the exponent is 4 and 3, so the degree is 7. For the next one, the exponents, you notice they're not listed, but it's understood that there's a 1 there. So the degree is quadratic. It's a power of 2, so we call it a quadratic. Now, for letter A, the degree is 7, so you would just say 7th degree, because there's no special word that we use for that. For letter C, notice that there's no exponents. The variable is not really, there is no variable. So if we were to write one, it would be x to the 0, which would mean that it is a degree of 0, which is called a constant. So if I asked you for the degree, you would say the degree of 0. In this case, find the degree of the monomial. Well, x to the 0 is 1. So 4 times 1 is just 4. So he is the same thing as letter C. So the degree is 0 as well. Next group. Example 2. Find the degree of each polynomial. Well, the degree of this term is 7. The degree of this term is 3. And now that we have the degree of each monomial, the degree of the polynomial is the highest degree. So the degree of this polynomial is 7. That's the degree. Example B. Don't worry about the fractions. All it's asking us is for the degree. So if we look at the degree of the first term, we have an exponent of 2 and we have an exponent of 1, so the degree of the first term is 3. For the next term, the degree of that is the exponent, 4. For the last one, the constant of -5, we know that the degree is 0 because the x is really to the 0 if you thought about it, or the z, or the variable. So the degree is, again, the highest, and the highest or the largest exponent is 4. So the degree of this trinomial, and there's 3 terms if you think about it, 1, 2, and 3. The degree of this trinomial is the highest exponent, which is 4. Okay, for example 3, they want us to organize it in standard form and then give the leading coefficient. So remember that standard form is greatest to least. So I always look at all of my terms and then I circle the largest one. Always take the sign in front. Then I go to the next largest. Then the third, always take the sign in front, so that's minus 4x squared. And the last one is plus 16. The leading coefficient is the coefficient in the front, which is an understood 1. Standard form for the next one would be, again, take the sign in front. So the first term is negative 3y to the 8. Then comes a positive 18y to the 5th. And lastly comes that plus 14y. And the leading coefficient is the number in front, which is that negative 3. Now into the vocab. Letter A, they want you to classify it by degree, and then by term. So, degree. The highest degree is 3, so this is called a cubic. There are 2 terms, so that is called a binomial. So this is called a cubic binomial. For letter B, the highest degree is 6, and remember there's no special name for 6th degree. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, so this would be called a 6th degree 4-term polynomial. That's a long name because there's no special name, so it's 6th degree 4-term polynomial. Sorry about the overlapping of the words, so just wanted to make sure that we get it. The next one, degree. Well, the exponent is 1 right there, so it's got a 1. Degree of 1 is called linear. Degree of 1 is called linear, and there's only one term, so it's a monomial. So we would call this a linear monomial. So the name of the polynomial will always be, the first name of the polynomial is by degree, the second name is by, or the last name is by number of terms. Okay, the last type of question that you're going to be working with is going to be a word problem where basically they're going to give you an equation and you're going to have to try to find value. A tourist accidentally drops her lip balm off the Golden Gate Bridge. The bridge is 220 feet from the water. The height of the lip balm is given by the polynomial. Okay, so they're telling me height is equal to negative 16t squared plus 220, where t is considered the time, and they want to know how far, so above the water, so what is the height of the lip balm after 3 seconds. So they want to know what is h equal to when t is 3. As a quick aside, that equation that you see right here is a quadratic binomial, and that's actually the equation to anything on Earth that is falling. Because of gravity, when things fall, it goes like this. Now, if I was to continue it the other way, you would notice that that's a parabola. It's a u. Power of 2 makes a u. So this equation that you see up here, this number here, is gravity pulling down the item as it's falling. That's actually the speed of gravity pulling it down. So that's a really interesting aside. So the question is asking us to find h when we know that t is equal to 3. So basically you're just literally going to plug in 3 for t and do the work, and when you do the math, you get negative 144 plus 220, which gives you 76. So that means that the lip balm is going to be 76 feet off the ground after 3 seconds. That's basically what it's going to be. So now you're going to go ahead and complete your independent practice.